I'm one right next to
It was open for all the Democrats. It was open for all the Democrats.
I have a flashback.
Now today, I couldn't imagine not coming here all Friday and the weekend.
Very nice of you. She's been very difficult.
I think the doors are locked.
It was,
Oh, it is unlocked downstairs?
Yeah, I found the maintenance.
Because that's where she usually comes in, I think, right?
He said he didn't know there was a meeting.
That we have to check. Understand.
The lease already told me it was open for the Democrats.
Sounds like a handle thing. Hey, I don't have a key to this truck. Are you kidding me? Mayor doesn't trust me. Where did you call? Never get it back. You'll never get a key to the city. You realize that?
I don't wind up the office.
Because then you accuse me of all the other. No.
Yep.
bad day.
Do you have a city council ID? What?
No.
Yes, you do.
I'm telling you guys, I don't have one.
You don't
Everybody
speak
else
to City
has.
Hall?
No. As council president, I had to give that up.
Should have asked.
They get lost. I got Joe Allen's keys.
Marion, let's wait 1 minute. Marion's gotta be coming, right?
I'm sure she is. Let me, well,
I guess we'll have to, right? I mean, 5:30 is 5:30, right?
All right, we're going to call to order the Finance Committee for this evening. Tonight's agenda, obviously, is to talk about the 2020 budget. Everybody should have received a copy of suggested changes. I tried to put everything in a relatively easy order. So everybody has a copy of those. I tried my best to put a synopsis together. You have Mr. Riggy's suggested changes. There's a composite from other council members. So what we did was looked at these. Appreciate everybody sending in suggestions. Tried to keep it an open process as much as we could and get everybody's input. Try to put together as much of this as we could, working with the mayor as to some of the discussions, to see what was possible, what's not. And so let's just go through line by line as to what some of the updated proposal is, and go through with some of the comments as to why they are feasible or why they are not. All right, so if you turn to your budget, starting on the revenue line, it's A101001. All right.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
adjourned. Let's go.
We're all done.
We're on line A1001 revenue, real property taxes. So we were able to, by updating some numbers and getting better numbers, the change there is $330,000 decrease in the tax levy. So we were able to decrease that $330,000, and we'll go through how this was accomplished. The next suggestion was A1081, adding $50,000 to the pilot projects. That has been added to the budget. So that line is again A1081, increased by $50,000. Next would be on page 4, the water fund, which we'll spend some time going through in detail, but I'll just do the overview right now. A2801A, interfund revenue water fund. This was increased $217,247, and I'll give a detailed explanation to that as soon as we finish this.
Read that number again, please.
217247. Next is A3089H, the casino license fund. We have to match the county on that, so that is increased by $25,000. We're at line A511N, appropriate reserves debt. That's increased debt reserves to pay the debt by $13,401. Next is A5999, the appropriate fund balance. That's been changed by $12,615 to match last year's budget. Now we are on page, well, 1. Line A1210-100, the salary for the mayor. This has been changed to 4%. That is equal to 1% per year. The reason that's 1% per year is that once he can't give himself an increase as while he's in office. So 4% equals 1% per year. Let's see. Next would be, we should have folded pages. Page 14. This is also one of the suggestions. It's line A1621, 121, the seasonal laborer. The salary has, no, not salary, the wage has been increased to $13 per hour. So the new budget line would be 121,680. 121,680. We go to page 18, line A, 1930-480, judgments and claims. This has been decreased by $25,000. So the new line would be $225,000, and the hope is there would be no big lawsuits.
Am I on the wrong page or where?
Page 18, A1930-480.
My 18 is good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, 16.
16, sorry.
16.
Again, what is it now, 16, what?
16.
Page 16, A1930-480. Sorry about that.
Use a glass?
Maybe.
Gotcha. And again, what was the change in that we found?
Sorry, to $225,000. It's a subtraction of $25,000. Make sure.
Did everybody find that before we move on?
Yep, I'm giving people time. Next is A 3122-121. Full-time per diem salaries. That's on page 19. We're looking at the crossing guard incentive. This has been raised We're at $13 per hour, but there's been an increase to make it 4% higher to $13,200.
That's in the budget.
That's already in there.
It's already there.
Oh, well, we already did that then. Sorry. Hey, the numbers start rolling around. Let's see, A3614. That would be the police review board.
Is this gonna be new then?
No. Oh, it must be. No. Oh, yeah, it's new.
Adding the 3614?
Because the suggestion, yes, it is new, I'm sorry. Because to add $1,000 for the police review.
Isn't there already a line in the budget for the police?
No. There's
No.
nothing. No, and that's why I wanna make sure we have it in there.
So we're creating, yeah. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Anthony.
He's back there, he's on video.
Next is pools maintenance, A7115121. That is page 36. You're increasing the park attendant pavilion to $13 per hour. So the new budget line is $20,800. Next would be just the opposite page, A7125120, the park attendant, seasonal and seasonal recreational leaders. Those have also been increased to $13 per hour. So the top line would be $15,600. And the seasonal recreational leader would be $12,800. All right, so now we need to go into the water fund. All right, so line F, it's, page 1 of the water fund. Line FX 511N, appropriate reserves. This is being changed to 148,111. What's happening here is that 2 old capital projects will be closed out and moved into the interfund revenue in the water fund, and this is a one-time only possibility. So it's 148,111.
It was out of what line again, Jen? I'm sorry.
FX 511N.
511N.
It's-
Very bottom one
Yes.
says appropriate reserves.
Yes. All right, so if we go in to, let's see, FX 8321, line 425, that's on page 5. We're looking at light, power, and gas. We've made a reduction there of $50,000 to $635,250.
Give me that line again.
FX 8321 425. I think I might have said the wrong one, sorry. It's the light, power, and gas. And it's 635250. Next is just a little bit below on line FX 8321 460 under repairs. That's been decreased by $25,000 to $100,000. Is everybody there? Trying to not go too fast. Line FX 9040-152, workers' comp medical services. This is decreased from 100,000 to 89,964. This was done after consulting with human resources to see what outstanding potential workers' comps out there. And they felt comfortable with the decrease there. Next would be FX 9901-901, which is page 10. You add all that up, you get a change of $217,247 that is sent to the general fund. So the new number is $3,251,990. Next would be the capital. Were some suggested changes here as well. There's been an addition under the police request to speed signs with a camera for school zones. There's 32 of those speed signs. The total is $113,000. You will notice as well the changes under the fire department for their requests. So those have been made.
Right, so those are all new numbers, aren't they, John?
Yes.
Can you tell us what they are? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I was.
Sorry. Those are all.
Yeah. Thermal imaging camera 6. They asked, the new number was 49,373. We put 50,000 just to be safe.
Okay.
Turnout gear was 41,200.
So what was it?
The washing machine.
That's the
Yeah.
washing machine.
Extractor.
Oh, the extractor, the 4 machines. That includes the extra warranties.
Right.
So 41,200. There's my line. The pickup truck was reduced to 65,000. And those are the changes.
Yep.
Next would be, let's see, changes to the golf water. No, I think we're all done. Yes, as just a note to myself explaining things. All right, so how do we get some of these numbers? First of all, the changes in the water, I think, were explained. That certainly the workers' comp was in consultation with HR, and the closing out of 2 capital projects led to some significant savings, but again, that is a one-time only savings. There were some suggested changes to the sewer fund. However, that just wasn't deemed to be possible or feasible. First of all, we have a $55,000 project online. 55 million, yes. Yeah.
M and a K.
Well, you did,
Like
you put
me.
the M, I put the K.
I
So,
wanted the 400 million courthouse.
so 15 of which is for a grant, so we're down to 40 million. But we're trying, the city's trying to get a 40-year payback on that. That would basically be $1 million a year. Whether or not that happens, we're hopeful, but trying to keep that in play. Additionally, we have the project up in the north side that's already been budgeted over in like Renaside and Lancaster. But that's just phase one. There will be a phase two and probably phase three and further. So that will be coming. And the idea was to try not to use reserve, to take out loans, to use the reserves to pay for these. So the funds have been built up over the years in order to keep borrowing to a minimum. And the other thing is if we were to subtract out of take out of the sewer fund, we would, and the water fund even more, we would have to substantially increase the sewage and water rates, which we're trying to keep to a minimum in the future. Otherwise, it would probably be 20-25% increases if we did some of the suggested changes. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Palomeni, so you're saying for $130,000 transfer, we'd have to increase fees 25%?
Possibly, yeah.
For $130,000?
Yes, because you have $1 million being paid every single year for loans.
Thank
Then
you.
you also have the $500,000 payments from Niskuna that aren't happening currently. And we also have the north side drainage projects coming online. Let's see. Reserves. Oh, the water fund. We use the reserves to make the 2 wells. That's basically 3.4 million. So that was without coming into debt. So using those reserves to pay for those projects.
Sorry, Mr. Palomeni. So are we taking that out of the capital budget then?
That
The
would
water
be
The water well funding in the capital budget? If we're using
It's all
reserves?
the second to capital,
Yeah.
capital reserves. We wanted to let you know what we're doing.
Well, I'm saying if we're putting it in the capital budget, to the tune of $2.5 million, how are we also using reserves?
Because we're not borrowing.
It's not being borrowed. If you look at the line, it's a
Reserve,
zero.
It's a capital project that the council should know that we're going to spend that money on.
Okay.
So the proposed, if I can find my paper.
I'm sorry, I have another question. It actually says under city share 0, because, well, should that read 0 then?
Yeah, I think that's wrong.
That shouldn't read 0. It says the city share is 0. It should say the
It
city
does
share is
say
$2.5
zero, but I
million.
think the idea was that it's
bond.
zero bonding.
Okay,
I don't have that right in front of me.
Yeah, that's it.
Looking to get used cash as opposed to bonds.
So that brings us to a decrease in taxes by 1.5408%. Just a second. Let's see. I don't think I missed anything.
yes, you did. You definitely missed something.
I'm talking about in the proposed budget changes.
Well, in the proposed budget changes, we also talked about not eliminating the housing coordinator position, which we didn't bring to the table.
Not yet. I was going through the proposed changes.
I thought we worked on the proposed changes together at the table.
So though that's a suggested budget for your consideration, we tried to do our best to incorporate as many of the suggested changes as possible. And try to, well, Ms. Carrazzo was first, so I'll let her go first.
I just feel very strongly that we should not be eliminating the fair housing coordinator. It's an important service in the city. There is not a service to replace it or support it at this point, and it's just not, I'm not in favor of that at all, so that is something I would like brought forward as a proposed change, is to add that position back in.
Okay, Mr. Kosher?
I wasn't commenting on that, I just wanted, just to clarify the mayor's salary, cutting it down to 4%.
It's
As you
1% per
as you
year.
did mention, that is going to be the mayor's salary for the next 4 years in a row. There will be no increase in the mayor's salary for 2021, 22, or 23. So that 4% will be flat for those remaining 3 years. So it's a substantial cut from the mayor's original request of 16%.
Ms. Perazzo?
And do you have these proposed changes typed out for us so we can look at a list of them?
Nope, that's why we went line by line. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, are we gonna discuss the position that was removed from the budget? Are we gonna talk about that?
Go ahead.
Well, I don't think that, again, we discussed it before, we'll talk about it again, that, don't believe it's a position that should be removed. I know there was some talk about, because of the consolidation of the two housing agencies, that, that would be a good way, but I disagree, because I feel like the city should maintain its role, what it's doing, and not only does the Fair Housing Coordinator do that part of it in terms of the mortgage, but also if there's housing complaints, that those kind of things come to the Fair Housing Coordinator as well. And so I don't see how we take that and just turn it over to another agency, or just not have a place that people can come to the city where they are residents to be able to come to do that, but as opposed to an agency that we hire out to. So I'd like to see it put back.
Okay. Mr. Riggi?
Yes, I feel the same way. I mean, I'm kind of puzzled on why this became an issue this year, that we're streamlining and doing away with this position. First, we were told there was going to be executive session, and we're going to look at disciplinary matters, which I don't think we believe we should.
No, thank you for, I'll just interrupt you for a sec. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we're not making disciplinary or evaluation part of the budget. It was requested, that's why I sent the email, but that's why we did not go into executive
I
session.
didn't know that was called off, but that's fine with me, because I don't think it belongs.
I meant to say that at the beginning, so thank you for bringing that up.
I mean, if this is a personnel problem, that's a mayor's deal. Don't ask the city council to do the work of personnel. Told we do not direct personnel, that's the truth, we don't. But are we eliminating the position, or are we eliminating an individual? Because it seems to me like this is a persecution thing. That's the best I can say about it. I don't know what else there is to say about it except for what it is, and that's what it is. If that's the case, the city council shouldn't be doing this kind of work. We should leave the position in there and let the administration deal with this individual if there seems to be an issue. That's as simple as that. So I don't see why we should be eliminated. It should be put back in where it belongs.
One thing I did forget to mention beyond the why we're not doing executive session, thank you for that, is there was a question regarding the home coordinator position and the planner one or senior planner. So the individual that was in the home coordinator is being shifted to the planner one. And the budget last year was 62,705. And the proposed budget for the new position is 64,996. And that's the same individual.
There is not an increase from 49 to
No,
60.
there's no increase from 49 to the 60, basically 65. It's not, oh, sorry, thank you. Page 44 and 45, we're at lines A8687, home 100, home coordinator.
686.
No, 8687. The home coordinator is 62,705. That individual's been moved to 8686 100, the planner one or senior planner. which is
Exactly.
65.
So does their funding still come out of CDBG?
Not for the planners, no.
So this home coordinated position that you're moving from 8687 to 8686
It's
is
not, not moving, they're already moving the individual.
Yeah,
just
just
We'll
the,
fill in another CSA position.
We're just filling, so that position
From
remains,
management to CSA.
so the position remains there, but the individual's moved?
I'm saying, we're
I said, you said the position remains there, but you're moving the individual out of that position?
out of one coordinator to become the planner, which that's what he's educated. He was a planner previously, for the city.
And what's their salary on it, Chuck?
it was 62,705 for the person. The new salary is 64,996.
That's 2%.
Right.
2% plus.
2%.
Whatever is spent in
Right.
salary is for that position, for the CSA contract.
Any other questions?
My suggestion about removing 250,000 from the smart city and the capital to put towards courtroom renovations, is that not possible?
Jen, if I could just
Yeah, go
chime in
ahead.
on that, if you don't mind, and I think I spoke with you about it as well. I did meet with the mayor and a couple of days ago, I think it was, right, Carrie? We met and I expressed my strong concern to put $400,000 in there for the courtroom renovations. And that's how I really felt about it. But then the mayor had indicated that he had met the day before with Clifford and Judge Chicotina down at Schenectady PD. And the mayor was actually kind enough to get the judge right on the phone. We put him on speakerphone because, again, at that point, I insisted I saw something in writing that the plan was in place. And the judge was very adamant about the handshake agreement that the mayor has said we have had for the renovations in City Hall, which will be covered by OCA. Or any renovations that are happening in the existing space that they are leasing will be covered by the state. However, the renovations that they're talking about, and again, only talking about in Schenectady, we still have to get the engineers to design, do a layout, has to them for approval, and then to New York State for approval. The judge was estimating at best late summer, early fall of 2020. And I said, well, could we put, and I even shot the number, 200,000 in there just to cover ourselves. And he said, no, he said, it'd be best if you wait till you get some figures from the engineering, from the design, from the layout, so you have some true numbers to go with. And with that conversation, I said that we do have a current existing lease that pays us, I believe it's approximately $70,000 a year for the leasing of the space here in City Hall. And I said now with this additional space that we were proposing to be doing in Schenectady PD, could we renegotiate the lease to include that additional spacing? And he said, of course, that would be take place for us. So again, with that conversation, I was very comfortable. Not putting anything into the courtroom renovations, based on the conversation with the judge. And it's been going on for a long time, obviously, but as the conversation was pretty solid. And again, we're going to get the work done here in City Hall, which I think is important as well, to separate give Judge Frost, I believe, her own area, her own office, bathroom space, and whatever else they were doing up there. I don't know if Gary wants to talk about it or not, but again, that's just my own personal feeling, because originally I wanted, like I said, $400 million for the courthouse, but it would have been a great courthouse, but another Taj Mahal, I guess, huh?
Well,
So that's just my.
I still believe we should start banking something towards it, because even in the smart cities line, we don't know, there's no engineering studies that went out, but we're putting $2 million in that line. So why not take a little bit out of it and start a line there's going to be some cost in the police station for sure. So I still feel strongly about that.
Well, I take exception with that. Have retained Nice Tech, professional service, Corning, also doing engineering work in terms of the fiber deployment. I've given you a budget which outlines what the intended expenditures for those monies are.
Any, oh, go
We
ahead.
disagree with that point, that's for sure. You know, the money, that money's been there, we just now got something that tells us about smart cities. We still haven't gone out to the public with anything with it per se and get some feedback from them, it's their tax dollars. So, I mean, we're packing this money away, but we don't pack money away for other things.
We have. We're looking for the bonding for the water and sewer. We have done outreach with National Grid for surveys. We've done meetings with community groups on Lower Union Street when we did the deployment. I brought together a nationally renowned group that came to Union College. Members of City Council chose not to attend that, even though they were invited, with the exception of Mr. Talamini. So I understand the maneuvering and some of the posturing where people can take different positions, but I'm comfortable with my recommendations to the council, and again, appreciate the support of the council for those monies.
Again, we agree to disagree with that. Most people on the street, when you talk to them, they really don't care about that, to be honest with you. You know, when you go door to door, they don't even know what smart cities is, and there's always gonna be the hacking issue with it. Again, there's been research has been done in major cities. I'm not gonna say maybe San Francisco isn't as smart as Schenectady or Atlanta, Baltimore, but they've had some major problems with it. So this is something we're entering into, and we're really not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. I'm not positive this is the thing for us to do, but you're asking the city council to put $2 million into the fund on top of the $5 million we already allocated, and that's a lot of money. You know, we were talking about a few years, you mentioned it went from 10 to 15% or 15 down to 10%. Well, that $5 million that was in there, that was the 15% tax break, but it was the smart city part of the budget. So we're willing to work with you, Mayor, but, you know, we'd like to not be kept in the dark so much. It's just now there were some questions raised while you presented us with a budget on that. So that's my feelings on that, and just.
No, go ahead, finish on. I just want to bring that.
No, I mean, I'm basically done with that because I see it's going nowhere, but I think it's wrong. Anyhow, you have something to say about that, because I have another issue to bring up after this from my wish list.
With smart cities as well. Yeah, so with the smart cities piece, and again, the mayor did do the presentation, which we all agree was long overdue to all the council public. I believe the mayor has at least 3 public sessions, informational sessions, maybe 4, that have already been set, and all to give, again, feedback from the neighborhoods, from the community. And just a few, maybe it was a month or so ago, the controller was here, Tom DiNapoli was here, and he had mentioned about he has a separate force now, a separate crew of individuals that are actually working on the antivirus in software. If I'm correct on that, Gary, he had mentioned that's in his report, that he has a dedicated staff now just worried about the concerns that you're talking about, and working closely with Schenectady, with Syracuse, New York, and the Buffalo region to making sure that does not happen. But again, Schenectady was singled out in the report from the controller's office on several occasions of what we're doing and how we're moving along. I think the partnerships that that committee has created, I think, are second to none to what we're looking at. But again, we need more public input. We need more information from their office. I think it's coming now. I think the dialogue has finally started. It will begin, and hopefully it'll continue to support.
And secondly, my suggestion about no non-contractual pay raises to exceed 2%, including the mayor. I mean, I'm okay with the mayor getting 2% every year for the 4 years. That's okay with me. But as far as some of the pay raises in some of the managerial positions, they go from 2%, 4%, 5%. So I think we need some clarity and some level playing ground with that. So that's my feeling with that. Again, you know, it would be nice to get some more people. I know you called me on it publicly about boots on the ground. The smart city's not going to fill potholes. You know, it may tell us where the pothole is, but it's not going to fill them. It's not going to repair the streets. We need more blue-collar workers. I'm a blue-collar worker, and that's what I advocate for, because you can't do it without the people. But as far as the pay raises, you know, I don't see where the justification is performance-based. I'm not quite sure about that, but I just soon see it level for everyone. And in the private sector, I never got a 2% pay raise every year, just a 2% pay raise every year, that's for sure. So why should the managers be getting more than the workers? I'm not quite sure about that either. So that's my suggestion with that, and I'll leave it at that.
Ms. Barrazo?
I just want to state that I'm highly disappointed that once again this ended up being somewhat of a closed door procedure. Obviously, this whole list of things was put on. We're supposed to come to the table to talk about this together.
And that's
We don't even
exactly
have a
what it was.
list. No, I'm sorry, but you had your 4 votes before you walked the door. We had a list of things to sit down and discuss together. We should have had all of the proposed changes in front of us, not just some of the proposed changes in front of us, because you knew what you were going to do before you walked in here, and that's not how this council is supposed to function. We're supposed to come to the table, we're supposed to come to consensus, we're not supposed to talk behind closed doors, shake hands, pat backs, and make deals. So I'm highly disappointed. It's just a dog and pony show once again, and it's a darn shame is what it is. And we're sitting on too much of taxpayers' money right now, and I stand by that.
Well, first of all, it's a proposed budget change brought so everybody could discuss it. You've had your opportunity to discuss, as we will continue. To sit there and say it's behind closed doors and not brought forward, it has been brought forward. And it is here on the table for you to look at and discuss.
And it was
And we're
decided
all
before you walked
listening
in
to
the
this.
door.
So this is just a suggested budget as per what the finance committee is supposed to be doing,
Those are good words.
as were yours. Any other questions?
None except, I'll just reiterate, again, what Ms. Barrazo said, you know, she brought some things to the table, I brought some things to the table, and it didn't even come up in your discussion, because I agree. This was a done deal before we even walked in the door. I could be home having my supper. You know, you're gonna pass this out of committee, and it'll pass 4-3 probably Monday night, that's my guess. So it's not the way the process should work. It's not open, not transparent.
Actually, it exactly is the way
When I
the
was
process is
first
supposed
on
to
the
work. The
council,
finance
I
committee is to
was
bring
shut out
forward
then,
a
but
proposed,
now you're shutting more people
and your
out.
suggestions were brought forward and they looked at. You were given reasons as to why many of those couldn't be
I
done.
didn't hear any reasons. We didn't go when you went through it. I didn't hear why we couldn't do any of those things. I heard it after I brought it up. So,
You got an explanation regardless. All right, then I will call the question. Is there?
Can I just make a comment
Yes.
before? I think that allowing the department heads to manage the departments is critical in the management of the city. And I fully support the commissioners and the department heads being able to do the necessary changes in order to move the city forward. And sometimes they're tough changes, and coming from the private sector, I mean, I've been here and done that, and understand that, there's always other opportunities within the organization to, have other positions filled. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to maintain a position for whatever reason. And I think it's important that we empower those individuals to be able to manage their cost centers appropriately. And I strongly believe that we need to pay the people appropriately that are doing a good job so that we can maintain the quality individuals that we have on staff. So I support the managers being able to manage. Thank you.
Ms. Porterfield.
I don't think any of us disagree with that, but if we're talking about, and it seems like we're circling back to the position where the manager started to move the position, but I think we should look at what that person brings to the table as well, just not what the manager's opinion of it. So, we move that money out of the budget, out of that line, that position is being removed, but we haven't talked about what happens with that funding. We haven't talked about what happens to those duties that person did and how we make sure that they're done. And to say that we're going to move them over to an organization that's still in the middle of its merger does not make sense. Because then what happens to all the people who we're supposed to be providing that service to? So if we need to transition something that's one thing, but to just do it flat out like that, I have to disagree with that. And again, I have to agree that I feel like there's some level of retaliation that's going on here, because this came up similarly last year, and that's not how we're supposed to run. I understand, Mayor, it's your responsibility, and you get to call on personnel, et cetera, but still in all, we're providing a service to the community, and as I have said before, I actually sit on that board, and I know what that board does for first-time homeowners, people that maybe some people can't relate to because financially they're not as well off as some people who think it's okay for these people not to have this service. But I think that you really need to take a deeper look at what happens and who gets a service out of this position. It's not just 13 things that happen. These are people's lives that we're impacting.
Ms. Peraza.
And we just saw a prime example of it in writing, from a person who was having a very difficult time navigating, not getting any phone calls, not getting any services, and that position was able to step in assist. So there's your real-time, demonstration of how that position is needed. So.
I should know, I just said another thing, because I forgot one of the wish list things, whether it's feasible or not, for the city council to have oversight on any contracts over $50,000.
I did see that. I didn't. I would say that'd be separate from the budget, that we discuss it in a committee meet. Well, obviously it's a committee meet, but separate from the budget process. I understand your concerns, and that's why I wasn't part of the actual budget. But we can certainly.
Well, I guess I was going to say I would vote yes on the budget with the $2 million in there unless we have some oversight. That's what the bottom line is.
I'm more than happy to have this addressed in the committee meeting, at our next committee meeting. I thought better to keep the two separate. I do understand the aspect, and it was not ignored. I thank you for bringing that up.
So, Mr. Parliament, can we have Ms. Michael add that to this committee meeting?
Yes,
That item?
absolutely.
And also, going along here, and Marion, you should, when we're on the MHA board, and Gary as well, I mean, anytime we had a change of work order, or when contractors had additional work to be done, they always had to come to the MHA board for approval.
Yes.
What's the procedure now for the city? I mean, we don't get to see a change of work order, and a lot of times we question these low-ball estimates that supposedly are going to be completed, but the council doesn't have any oversight or anything, Gary or Carl or anything?
Well, we've managed them so there aren't major change orders. Some of the stuff, if it's on state contract, some of the vehicles and other things where they're all pre-bid or pre-priced, then those don't come back to the council.
No, I'm talking about work. I'm talking about work like paving or demolitions or anything like that.
Anything that deviates from that original contract would come back to the council for a change order. But we've managed them within the scope of the original contract that's been approved by the council.
I've never seen one since I've been here. I mean, has anybody seen one? Change of work order?
But that's because we've managed it within.
So every contract that we have sent out and that we've worked with Carver or anybody has always come under bid?
Well, it's not under bid, it's what they've bid.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm sorry.
Contract.
The award.
It's always been at the
They
award
usually
contract.
have some retainage that's in there, so that
And
there's some wiggle room.
in the paving contract, there's some per unit prices, so that if extra work is done within what I'll call the normal expectation, that's pre-priced in that bid, so we know what we're gonna pay. But it still cannot exceed the total price that's been awarded with the contract.
So, and again, I'm out of order because we're not talking budget, but maybe we could put that on for a couple of weeks, just to discuss it.
Yeah, we already.
Yeah, and then maybe set a limit and see what because we got them on a regular basis, remember? I mean, when they're doing stuff and, maybe set a dollar amount or a percentage amount.
Not that I'm a contractor, but,
Right.
I've never seen where we've
change
never
order.
have a change order. It's kind of surprising. So
Yeah.
they must have so much fat in their
Yeah, a couple weeks.
There's never a change order.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know.
Well, the scope of the work is better to find.
So just, you'll talk about this in another meeting, but just to add to it really quickly, so you know, what we put out in the bid, there's a lot of language, it doesn't just come back, here's how much we're gonna pay for it. the language is in there, like the mayor said, about if we have to go over or unforeseen things happen. So, it's all out there for the council. If there was a large deviation from the amount of money, or the amount of money was not budgeted by the council to do the work, that would be a different situation. But we're working right now within what our procurement policy, allows for.
Let's take a look at it. Let's discuss it.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
I mean, that's,
Boy, we're doing that, then we're doing a good job. Good job is right.
Motion.
So moved.
Second, Mrs. Lucy Balzanis, all those in favor?
Aye.
A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Yeah, we gotta take a look at it.